Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you for the introduction. And yeah, I'm really glad to be here. I see so many people are really interested in the progress of science. And yeah, first, I hope this is going to work now. No. I have to start with a trigger warning. Why I have to start with a trigger warning? So maybe some people who attended the ESCO meeting in 2022 in Milano and the German Society for Social Psychology meeting in Graz last year, they've heard a similar story from me. And other people have been talking about what I'm trying to talk about today. Maybe this talk is not the best talk for postmodernists. You might lose hope, and I hope you regain it again. Okay, so now let's become a bit more serious. So why are definitions important? So I have to say my background is in social psychology, and therefore I will bring some from social psychology. But I really like this example of Pluto, which was discovered in 1930 and named after the Roman god of the underworld. So maybe this was a foresight, because Pluto is not a planet anymore, it's a dwarf planet. So maybe it's a bit disrespectful to call the planet a dwarf, because it's still a huge thing out in the universe. But yeah, so here, even a planet is not a planet anymore from one day to the other. And of course, this is still ongoing discussion whether Pluto should be a planet or not. Okay, why do definitions matter? Okay, let's take it like a kind of meta perspective. So based on sound definitions, I mean, we can become better in predicting, explaining phenomena. I think that's why in this game. So that's what we want to do. We want to understand things. And if we want to understand things, we have to know what we are talking about. So what is really a prejudice? What is it? And of course, I think especially in psychology, we still have this issue. So we have to increase the rigor of our theories. So, okay, so theories are out there, and they're used for some time because they explain everything. And then it's like, oh, yeah, maybe it's not the best theory. Then they're like in the replication program, and they don't replicate all the basic findings. So maybe some things is like due to bad research practices, and some things is due to like really bad definitions. And the other thing is really important about good definitions is about we can measure phenomena, constructs much better. So this is a really nice paper about the measurement of risk by Peroni and colleagues. It's pretty old, 5-6 years old. And what he showed in his colleagues is basically, so if you correlate all the different risk measures, you get a correlation of 0.01. It's like, okay, what is wrong with risk research? You can ask yourself. It's like, okay, don't the people know how to measure risk? Or is it about like, oh, the construct is a super faceted construct? Of course, and then, for example, if I engage in gambling, it doesn't mean that I have to engage like in skydiving without a parachute. So therefore, it's like, okay, you can define risk in different ways. And hence, if people have a definition, and then based on that definition, they measure the construct, I mean, that's not a big surprise that they find a zero correlation. Everything else would be really more or less surprising. And of course, we would increase replicability, because if we all like have the same starting point, it's like, okay, yeah, if we measure like prejudice and we know what our definition is, and we can replicate the thing, it should be more easy to replicate. And of course, it would increase validity. I mean, these are all things that have been said, but basically, I really like this quote by Cause from 1959. So here, the most crucial issues in any science, an improper understanding of it can build the success of the whole enterprise. So, I mean, this is all not something new. So if we don't have proper definition, I mean, we can all like work 24/7, and in the end, the knowledge that we will gain is kills to zero. And again, I just want to emphasize, this is all not new. Not new. We didn't have like Aristotle, Plato, and things and people have been talking about this for millennia. And that's it. Okay. As I said, I'm a psychologist. I'm a trained social psychologist, so you will hear a bit more about psychology. So let's have a closer look here. And I mean, identifying and defining is like the central thing for developing theories. So it's, you know, again, and Rossiter really put it quite nicely. So here, especially, he said, when you're talking about definitions, if we don't have like clear definitions, psychology can become like a hard science. So it's like, okay, we have like these floating definitions, these floating constructs, and we do our thing and try to get published, and then yeah, that's it. Okay, but in the end, so really it's like, okay, what is our like impact on society? So here we have to be a bit more, we should be more precise. That's what I'm trying to convince you to in this talk. So how do we define constructs in psychology? So I mean, of course, there are like different taxonomies how we can define definitions. But I think these three are like pretty interesting. So we have like these operational definitions, we have like homeostatic proper cluster definitions, and conceptual definitions. So here, Fiona Hibbert wrote this really nicely, so you should really read her. It's really nice. So basically, operational definitions is what we are more or less trained as psychologists to use. So it's an empirically based definitions. Like, okay, we define the construct, how we measure it. So here, for example, like the concept is given meaning by the method used in arriving it. I think now here this classic quote by Boring, intelligence as the tests test it. So here, okay, what is intelligent? Okay, if you use this test, and it's like, oh, this is intelligent. If you use the other test, this is it. And operational definitions are not sufficient. So here, because when we have like these floating things going on, we can't compare things. And later on, I will talk about meta-analysis, and there we are comparing apples and oranges there. And I really like the quote by Popper, who says, like, okay, so basically, if we use operational definitions, we just going back to the method, how we assess things. We like engage in a vicious circle. We're doing like the same thing again and again. Still, we don't know what is the core about the construct. So, making long story short, operational definitions are not scientific definitions. So these are not my words. They have been said before, but I just want to strike them. Okay, then we have like this thing called homeostatic prevalence cluster. Sounds a bit tongue-cheek, but here the thing is, so we do see this in psychology quite often. So we have a construct, and this construct has many facets, and sometimes they co-occur, sometimes they don't co-occur. And you still say, yeah, it's this construct. And they are not essentials because, okay, they give us an idea what a construct could be, but it's not like the real idea what a construct is. So let me give you an example. So, okay, we have like a construct, and this construct has four facets, A, B, C, and D. And if we look like the first occurrence, okay, we have like the facet of A, B, and C. And the second occurrence is just B and C. And the interesting thing is when we look like the rows, it's like, okay, all over these five occurrences, what you see is that no single of these subfacets is occurring all the time. And that's what really makes the core features of a construct. So if you want to talk about a certain construct, these core features have to be there all the time. And the problem is that we just have this definitions where like some facets are aligned with like, oh, they occur at some time, they don't occur the other time. We are not really good at like demarcation. Okay, what is like this construct, what is the other construct? So there will always be an overlap. I mean, of course, to be fair in psychology, we will always have some extent an overlap, but at least it should be like to try to be as precise as possible. And yeah. And then we have like the third type of definition, it's like the conceptual definition. And making a long story short, it's really all about what are the core features of the construct. And this is really, it's a super easy example, but I really like it a lot. So here, okay, what is water? I think everybody knows what are the core features of water. 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. And so here, if you like have water in different occurrences, these 2 core features, they are always there. If you have like some calcium in the water, because maybe you live like in an area where you have a really mineral soil or whatever, you will have some things that will be added, but the core features will be always there. This is the big difference between the homeostatic property classes. So the core features are there. And in the conceptual thing, it's like, okay, these core features, it can be just 1 or 2 things. They're always there. And that makes the big difference. So here, A conceptual definition is like a proper scientific definition. Okay, what about the current affairs? I will say that psychology is facing a theory crisis again. I think these are all not new things to some point, but sometimes I'm really wondering why we haven't learned more about things. I have no clue. And again, people have been writing about this, and they could have added even more older resources. And what are potential reasons for like that we're having a theory crisis again? It's like, okay, there's really nice work by Andreas Stöckner and colleagues. It's like, okay, we're really bad at formalizing like theories. It's like, okay, when does X really lead to Y, and when does Y lead to Z, and so on? And here sometimes we put too little constraints on our theories. I mean, I mean, sometimes I don't get it, why we still engage in positive testing and we have to falsify theories. And this is like, okay, yeah, we found that X leads to Y, oh, nice correlation done. And sometimes we have like these multiple causes and we don't have like a proper cause thing going on. Okay, we have like these fuzzy things. And here, that what really makes my talk keep on going. It's like, okay, we have ill-defined constructs. So it's like, okay, things are just floating around. Okay, so here I'm going to bring you some examples like from the prejudice research. So I think most of the psychologists are familiar with the famous Ober definition about what prejudice is. And so basically the core thing is like, it's a negative thing about a person or a person who's part of a group. And then we have like the bus definition. It's a hostility or aggression. It's not even like thinking. So here we have like the things going to mix up. And then we have like competing definitions like, okay, prejudice can be positive or negative. And usually it's like, oh, it's a negative thing. And again, John Duckett's book, this one is pretty old, but it's still worth reading. So I think in the second chapter, he's only writing about different types of definitions. And I think this is really, when I read this book, I was like, this is boring to start with all these different kind of definitions. But now I feel like, oh, this is really great because it's like, okay, this can explain a lot of this mess that we have in literature nowadays. Okay. Another quite famous construct that we don't only deal with in psychology is empathy. So here, empathy is like the act of perceiving, understanding, experiencing, and responding with emotions and ideas of another person. I think that's quite a lot of things going on if you have empathy. And I think we all know that the Batson theory is like, okay, we have like these sub-facets about and here we have like the Davis and reaction to the observed experience of another. Okay, now we get even more weight. And now hold on, here comes the best definition of empathy. A basically passive process of information gathering. That's empathy. So, but here, please read Cuff and colleagues' paper. So they found like, to get them to mix up the number, it's like 43 different definitions of empathy. It's really worth reading, but this one was really like, okay, what is going on? Okay, is the worst yet to come? So, okay, this has all been about talking about single studies and why definitions are super important. And now let's think about cumulative science. So think about meta-analysis. Okay, usually the idea is like, okay, what we've learned over the last 20, 30 years, and let's find out the proper effect size of whatever. Okay, why especially did we focus on meta-analysis in our research? Well, they are more likely to be cited and they have a bigger impact of the field. And the other thing, what really started this whole idea, and here you really get the full process and like being super open how this all started. I read this meta-analysis by Hackney and Sanders in really like third-tier journal. And what is great there, what they did is like they looked at the different definitions of religiosity and mental health. So basically they had like 3 definitions for religiosity and 3 for mental health. And depending on the definition, they could produce all pattern of results from like positive correlations, negative correlations, and zero correlations. I felt like, wow, if we can do this with meta-analysis, do we really need them again? Or do we have to take maybe a look why such things can happen? And I feel like, okay, maybe it's about the definition. Okay, what did we do? So we sampled 150 meta-analyses from Psychological Bulletin because you have like meta-analyses from all different disciplines across psychology. And we used the period from 1990 to 2027. And we coded a lot of things. So we called the fields, maybe some subfields in psychology are better in defining constructs than others. Then some characteristics of the meta-analysis, so the year, decade, and before, after the replication press. And we thought like, oh, this big eye-opener maybe had an impact. And some authors' correlation. And the most important thing is like, so about the construct information. So was the construct defined? Yes or no? Was there a definition provided? If the definition was provided, was it like an operational definition or conceptual definition? Was it really a clear-cut definition? Was like, okay, is this like, can people really understand what this concept is trying to be? One thing we also have been thinking about is like the valence of the construct, because there is like this idea of the density hypothesis by Hans Alves and Christian Unkelbach, and what they're saying is like it's more likely to have a clear definition of what is not good and what is good. So you can like diverge on two sides, whereas you can be only like being round out right in the middle. So it can be too warm in this room, it can be too cold in the room, or it can be like, oh, this is really cozy. So that's the idea. Because like, okay, maybe like negative constructs are better defined than positive constructs. And then we also like checked whether there was a discussion about the construct. So I will show you some of the results, not all of them, but yeah. So how did we do at coding? I think we did pretty reasonable. So just jump over this. Okay, the first thing is, and this is not big. It's not a big surprise. It's like, okay, how many constructs did people investigate in the meta-analysis? And like the majority is like 2 constructs. I think that's read all the time. But it's really weird. There's a meta-analysis on 1 construct. It's there. Don't know why, but it got published in Psych Bulletin. So. Okay, I think this is the first thing that is really interesting. So, when we looked at was there a definition, yes or no? Light blue, a definition of all the constructs, and the dark blue or the black, no definition. So it's like only 1/3 of all the constructs that were analyzed in meta-analysis were defined. So not talking about how they were defined, there was a definition provided. Okay, then if you look about all of the subdisciplines across psychology, I think this looks pretty decent. So I mean, it's not like that we have like some subfields that are doing better than the others. It's like it's a phenomenon across all subdisciplines. So now I think this is, remember, only 1/3 of the constructs that people investigated were defined, and of those ones, of this 1/3, this is how people define the construct. And this made me really laugh. Only 5% provided the conceptual definition. So it's like the conventional threshold that we use for significant results. So hence, I didn't b-hack this. So here, okay. Then we have like, about the majority are like operational and homeostatic proper cluster definitions. So it's like, okay, if you think back, okay, what is a scientific definition and what is not a non-scientific definition? We could say, if you're really bold, that okay, most of the constructs that we like try to investigate in meta-analysis are not really properly defined. Here again, the same picture across all subfields. Yeah, here this is like our findings about before and after like the replication crisis. And we thought like maybe the replication has had an impact on colleagues, that they like try to do better. And so, I mean, there are studies out there showing like, okay, meta-analysis has become more reproducible, but okay, people talk about reliability, but about validity, people, maybe somebody has to tell them again. Okay. And now, I mean, this is what I really don't like. As a psychologist, always like saying, psychologists are bad. We are not good at defining constructs. Therefore, I want to ask, are we in this as psychologists alone? And the answer is no. I will give you some examples from other fields. So here, secondary progressive multiple sclerosis is one of the most common diseases that it's diagnosed. There's no clear definition. Same for neoliberalism. What is it? Green space. Everybody's talking about green space. We need more green space in our cities. Yes, I like green cities. I prefer that. But what is green space? Obesity. Is it just like a number? Is it like whatever? Still, we have no clue what obesity is. And I mean, if you think about through different sciences or different disciplines, it's like, okay, if I go to a medical doctor and he or she will tell me that, oh, you have a sepsis, then I would be really happy if he or she would know what a sepsis is, but still, it's not really well defined. And this is really why we really should care about our definitions, not only in psychology. And then if you zoom out a bit on the meta perspective, we have sometimes topics that are really best approached across disciplines. So here, for example, aggression. So if you want to study aggression, and you find across disciplines, you have really different definitions. And really, I think aggression is super important. Okay, I'm running out of time. Hence, I also try to provide a solution or an answer to my question. Okay, what should we do now? The myopic approach would be stick to the same procedure, and then we will wonder ourselves why our research is neither reliable nor valid. And Paul Neal would resurrect and say, guys, I told you. Okay, the topic approach would be like we have an office of research governance. This like curates cumulative knowledge. It's a kind of authority of definitions and really a authority under quotation marks. Then here also we have to foster informed sampling. Going back to this old Brunswickian ideas that we have really like representative research design. And this office of research governance should orchestrate our efforts. So I stole some of the terms by Eberson. Okay, that's maybe a topic, right? Maybe what could be more realistic? Well, maybe we should run meta-analysis if we know the constructs are defined. Then we can have like really, then we can use meta-analysis. We have a talk on meta-analysis. I'm really looking forward to that. Maybe we should allow colleagues more space for definitions in the manuscripts, or at least like to provide like proper like source. Then maybe we should define minimum standards for constructs. And here, that's what I've been doing for the last time, is like emphasize the importance of definitions. And maybe we should value descriptive work a bit more. So, okay, not do all of this empirical work, because that is kind of easy, but the theoretical work is hard, and so definitely we should maybe value this a bit more. And maybe we can have like meetings where like, okay, all the people or many people who are like working on aggression can get together and vote about definitions. Yeah, and maybe we should also train our students a bit more why definitions are important. So that's the take-home message. Thank you.